Welcome to those attending. We are just at the time, but I want to allow a little bit of time for others to be logging in. So we will start in just a couple minutes. I want to welcome those that have arrived, and one more moment, and we will start the webinar. Just want to be sure we give everyone time logging in because this is during the noon hour for some, and want to be sure everyone's had time to get situated. Just 1 minute more. Okay, good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're located. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar being hosted by Sage IT. My name is Michael Guillory. I'm the CMO for Sage IT, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, a bit of housekeeping is in order. Today's presentation and discussion is being recorded and will be made available through our corporate website, sageitinc.com, and via our company YouTube channel. It will also be made available through our webinar platform hosting this event. For those interested, the presentation material will also be available as a PDF download on our website. In addition to the material being presented today, we are also making available 2 automation case studies as handouts for our attendees. These can be found via the handouts window during the presentation. Additionally, we will have these posted on our website available to you there. This webinar is intended to be interactive and provide sharing of information among our panelists as well as the audience. We have allocated a portion of today's event for Q&A after the main presentation and want to encourage all attendees to ask any questions that they may have at any time. Our panelists will respond. Questions may be submitted using the questions section in the webinar panel. Should time not allow us to get to every question, we will provide answers as part of our follow-up. As you can see by the starting page of the presentation, our topic for today is accelerating digital workforce. Automate now or never. Indeed, most of us have seen a lot of change the last few months, some personally, some in business, or both. The business challenges are leading many to explore ways to adapt quickly, and automation is seen as a way to accelerate efforts through a digital workforce. We have identified 5 key takeaways for our audience based on today's material. The first, what's the next normal? Second, how is automation shaping up the coming of the digital workforce? Third, how to reassess automation priorities. Fourth, defining rapid response with automation. And fifth, a roadmap for preparedness. We have 2 distinguished panelists today. Oh, let's see. I made a mistake on that one. I clicked in the wrong place. So there we are. So we have 2 distinguished panelists today guiding us through this discussion. From Sage IT, we have Gopi Krishna Akella, and from Desert Leaf Consulting, we have John Conklin. Gopi and John, please say hi to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and how your backgrounds relate to what we're going to be discussing.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for that. Appreciate the introduction. Pleasure to be talking to all of the participants along with John today. Firstly, I want to thank John for coming forward to partner with us and communicating the need of automation and the viewpoints around it. This topic is something that we have been passionately talking about since some time, and we kind of share some admiration for the subject. So thanks for joining in, John. It's great to be sharing our views on this topic today. As one of the leading cognitive automation service providers, we at Sage IT are committed to evangelize and help organizations adopt automation to its fullest potential. We do know these are challenging times for all of us, but we believe this is the right time for automation to be leveraged, and it can play a significant role. Once again, thank you all for taking time and joining us. John, over to you.
Thank you, Gopi. I'm excited to be here with you today to share my learnings. And to be honest, many of these were learned the hard way. You don't always, when you're starting off in a pioneer, you don't always know the right way to go. I've been fortunate, though, in my career to have served in C-level and executive roles ranging from leading supply chain planning and operations to international division president, and I've served as a CIO in 3 different companies. It's really provided me a unique perspective, I think, of critical business process, enterprise-wide, deep functional knowledge, and technical acumen. And today's hyper-automation requires a command of all 3 of those domains. I think this technology paired with change management that I'll discuss later can truly accelerate a company's digital transformation. And I look forward to chatting with you about it today. Back to you, Gopi.
Thank you, John. Over to you, Mike, for the agenda.
Yep. And again, thank you to our panelists. As you can see from our agenda for today's webinar, we've structured the discussion into 5 segments. The first, current business environment, times have changed, which we know. Second, automation, as it is now versus the future. Third, automation measures enabling a rapid response during these changing times. Fourth, a roadmap for preparedness using automation. And fifth, the digital workforce, recent use cases. We will then conclude things with an open Q&A, welcoming your questions regarding the transition and use of the digital workforce through automation. With that, let's get started, Gopi. Please lead the way.
Sure, go to the next slide. Yeah. So thanks for setting the context, Mike. Right, the agenda and key takeaways are important. So before we get into the agenda items, I want us to step back, all the participants to step back and think about the situation at hand. Right, pandemic has affected each one of us in some way or the other, both personally and professionally to some degree, I'm sure. While this whole story is out there, I mean, we don't intend to go deeper into it. It is important for us to understand the crisis and its impact on the whole economic outlook, so that we all can be prepared better for business planning. So we have to realize that this pandemic shock is different from other shocks. I believe it kind of punched a big hole in the economy too fast, too sudden, without even we could realize and react to it in a professional and a solid way. And there is a unique situation prevailing in the economy right now, right, in the climate right now. There is a fine balance between confidence and uncertainty the organizations are trying to put forward. Confidence with respect to like forecasting business growth, and uncertainty with respect to the risk that they would have to carry if things go haywire. While organizations are trying to figure out how to balance the situation, I would say uncertainty is a new enemy for us, which has to be tackled. Earlier, it used to be like change is constant, change is the one thing that all of us have to adopt. Now, uncertainty has become the key word, and I believe that is going to set the context for the next decade of business that we are all going to do. So if you look at the economy, typically from demand and supply angles, there has been a demand shortfall, right? Most of the private consumption requiring any social interaction related activities are all lost in the first half of the year. We are almost like the middle of the year right now. Investments have also been curtailed because of these unstable growth prospects. But if you see, still the pandemic issues are still keep lurking around. We are not clear how to be prepared. Similarly, on the supply side, there are disruptions. Manufacturing got disrupted, air travel got disrupted. You name it, like schools, universities, education institutions got closed down. Restaurants are all like closed down. In fact, I kind of learned myself about how to do the e-learning for my kids. So this kind of created a total disruption of consumption in the last couple of months for all of us. These shocks have amplified. These are domestic shocks kind of a thing. If you kind of put it forward in a global scale, they kind of amplified the global spillover too. Multiple channels of businesses have stalled, including disruptions in global trade, supply chains, travel, financial channels, many of those things. That the right side of the slide kind of depicts the whole impact. So rebuilding confidence and measures around it would be a key action at this point of time from a macroeconomic perspective. I mean, cases are still surging, so we all have to live with this uncertainty, and that remains the fact for some foreseeable future, especially with a darker outlook. How can we be prepared for better planning in the future? I would like the participants to keep that in mind. Next slide. So if you see this kind of created a ripple effect in the market, right? The global spillover means there is the impact on the situation as a whole from a ripple effect point of view. What I meant to say is the continued surge of events that are happening or that may come in the near future, not just this COVID, even in the next 1 year down the line, if something comes up something somewhere else, there is going to be a ripple effect and is going to magnify the business weakness. While nobody's certain of the predictions, like we kind of put forward a couple of charts of the scenarios that could play out, got inspired from the McKinsey research. But none of us are certain of the predictions and scenarios of recovery. But one thing is clear, that the businesses can't run the same way they did before. There is a mass acceptance of pandemic reality among all of us now. For example, we all know retail sales, an important driver of economic growth, is struggling to come up. I mean, most of the times consumer spending enables economy to run smoother, but none of us would have even gone out and spent, right? I mean, in fact, we have not spent anything more than the essential stuff. So spending has been sporadic. So retail doesn't mean to say, but I'm not trying to say only the department sales angle, which is of course got affected, like JC Penney, Neiman Marcus kind of companies. They're all going for bankruptcy. But any other indicator that we take, auto sales, oil prices, everything else is kind of shrinking. On the flip side, the positive news is the spending online is increasing. So imagine your own business. Customers are buying and spending behavior, right? I mean, that behavior is changing as we speak. All of you coming from different industries, I'm sure you would have seen there has been a change in the behavior from your end customer point of view. Probably some of you are preparing for contactless payment experience. Some of you may be seeing distribution channels are changing because the previous supplier who was there is not there anymore in the business, or they are there but they just need some more help for them to sustain the business. So all of these kind of effects are affecting the way the way we all do the business now. So it's not the same as before, which I'm sure we all know. But the key point is, how do we readjust ourselves, readjust the processes, redefine the systems underlying, right, so that we can be better prepared. While there is all of it is played out, we need to start digging deep onto the real-time scenarios, and be prepared about how do we handle this as we move forward, right? John, would you have some views on the ripple effect?
Yeah, there's a lot of scenarios that are being advanced out there, and the way I see it is, whether you believe it's a U-shaped recovery or a rapid V-shaped recovery, it's the time to advance your automation capabilities. If it's a U, then you're looking to try to be resilient and reduce your cost and try to maintain some semblance of profitability. And if it's a V, then you're looking at crushing demand, and you're trying to ramp back up from what you thought was going to be a U. But either way, now is a good time to be investing in these technologies, and we'll be talking more about the now or never a little later on in the presentation.
Thanks, John. Yeah, Mike, go to the next slide.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Gopi and John. You've well described the current challenges businesses are facing as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. There's no doubt that the impact has been felt broadly and is long-lasting, just as a pebble striking a calm pond produces ripples far beyond the initial impact. Before moving to our next topic, we'd like to turn to our audience to get their input on their current challenges via a quick poll.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, gonna do the poll.
The poll question is, what have been the top priorities during the COVID-19 pandemic? Has it been accelerating the shift to a digital environment, improving employee experience, improving the customer experience, or delivering cost advantage through cost optimization? You can select one or multiples of these.
Interesting question, Mike. I'll be curious to know what's the response is going to be.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait just a few seconds, let the audience have a chance to respond.
Yep.
Okay. And we'll show the results. There we are.
Oh, super. Yeah, so that kind of gives a view, right? So accelerate shifting to digital with rapid scalability. That looks to be the most highly selected choice. Delivering cost advantage with cost optimization. Yeah, so seems to be like these are the two trends that we have seen in the market in the recent times. I do appreciate the audience for putting in their poll. So this kind of gives a pivot for us to share our views in the next coming slides about what do we do for enabling the rapid implementation, rapid scalability for organizations on the digital side. Yep.
Okay. All right, on to the next topic.
Yes, please.
Oh, wrong way. There we go.
Yep. So as we see, I mean, this is a code that we as an organization firmly believe, right, in this theory, that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. We believe Darwin's theory doesn't just apply to biological evolution, but also to business landscape. Right? Those able to best adapt to digital challenge will survive. And this quote is so true and relevant in these times. Right? Yeah, so I see the next slide, so that talks about the whole journey of it, which is important for us to understand from a maturity standpoint, right? While automation has been there out in the market since last couple of years, the adoption has been evolving. We do see automation is more of a journey, right? It's not like a one-time event where we do and then step away out of it. But the pace of the journey always depends upon the existing maturity of the organization. as we see there, right on the right side of the slide, the recent Forrester research says only 18% of the organizations have reached an advanced state of RPA maturity, which kind of highlights a point that there are 82% of organizations that are still dabbling around. What is RPA? What is automation? I mean, RPA is part of automation. There are many other levers within automation as such, but there's so much to be covered yet in achieving the RPA 4.0 stage. If you look at the current state, many a times we as a partner out in the market, we keep seeing automation being looked at piecemeal. It kind of gets conducted in a department centric, and it's more of a reactively approached initiative as of now. Of course, there are the 20% of organizations or 18% of organizations that take it a little seriously. That's why they kind of reach the maturity stage, but otherwise most of the other organizations are all like kind of looking it in a piecemeal side. So as Forrester puts it across, it's the low robotics quotient in many organizations, right? And on top of it, the thinking is more of addressing the current matured processes that all of us know, how to execute from when we bring in automation. But in that also, there is a mentality of mapping people to jobs, which we kind of see, rather than mapping the skills to tasks. The moment we see from skills to tasks angle, the whole advantage of bringing automation changes, and so organizations' view of adopting to automation also changes. If you see, pandemic has further exposed, right? I mean, with this current pandemic situation, we believe there is an exposure of gaps in the current systems, both in the front office systems. It could be customer onboarding processes, or it could be back office systems, right? There is a change in there. Okay, Mike, I see the slide has gone to the next one. Yeah. On this, so if you see these changes, which means to say the changes that are required on the front office, back office, and the processes that are happening, it is in a holistic way, the economic slowdown is forcing all of us to look at the way we do business differently right now. Right, it kind of, in fact, we do believe, like as it is mentioned there in the right side of the slide, there is a digital transformation surge is happening as we speak. Many companies like yours who are all on the webinar today, they're all trying to invest into the automation levers, which is the right way to do. Today there is all the more reason, right, to move away from the ad hoc bot development for basic processes to kind of adopt the more matured scale of the automation, which is the intelligent way of doing stuff, right? And our automation priorities also need to change. In fact, this is the right time to grasp the need of the automation and imbibe a culture of automation within the organization, right? I want to pause here. I want to bring in John to share his views on this in the previous slide. John, over to you. John, you there?
I was on mute. Anyway, from what I've seen, companies have really attacked RPA from an ad hoc department perspective, and what it's led to is suboptimal cost. Deployments get delayed. There's been a proliferation of automation platforms. They've got excess and underutilized robots licenses, proliferations of servers and clouds, and it's really lowered the return on investment, and I think really hampered getting to this stage 4. So I always like to begin with the end in mind, and suggest that people don't attack this as ad hoc and department solutions, that they select a platform and put in place the people management, change management aspects, so that this tool set that they begin with can be leveraged throughout all the way to intelligent automation in stage 4.
Nicely put, John. Yeah, nicely put. That is very true. Mike, over to the next slide. So while we understand this slowdown is impacting us, it is important also to know that how this is the event for us to invest ourselves into automation. John, I know you're the master at it, you're the veteran at it. Would you mind sharing a view on this?
The whole presentation today is now or never, and so this is really trying to address, the why now or why never. On the left-hand side is a recent Forrester survey. And the top three responses here are not surprising at all. You would expect to see customer experience, revenue, and cost reduction as the top three. What was surprising to me is that 81% of the respondents voted that change management processes were their next priority, and near behind it, 79%, the shift to digital business. And these two go hand in hand. Automation is threatening to employees. There's going to be natural hesitancy there, and we'll address change management a little later on. This is a booming category right now. Why the now or never? Companies are jumping on this ship. Gartner has indicated it was the fastest growing software category in 2019, projecting again in 2020, and over the next 5 years growing at almost a 28% rate. So your competitors are doing it, and hopefully you're doing it, because it's very disruptive. This can be a very disruptive technology that's bringing rapid advancements in customer experience, revenue growth, capturing revenue growth and unexpected revenue demand, and cost advantages in terms of OpEx and headcount. And it's providing companies who fully embrace it both scalability, rapid scalability to take on unknown demand, or a heightened resiliency when that demand may not show up. So the two big questions here for you is, if you delay, can you catch up? And when you get behind, it takes an awful lot more effort to catch up, because the leaders are still advancing. And so you have to advance at a rate that's a multiple of those leaders who are already on the path and on their way. So the question too comes up, can your company afford not to leverage this technology now? Or if you already have the technology, can you afford not to more rapidly advance your stage from a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or a 4? It's my view, Gopi.
Yeah, wonderful, John. That competitive advantage, it kind of caught my attention. It is so important for organizations to, note that while they fight this battle out on the crisis side, it is also, for them to make sure that, to keep the competitive edge. It is important to align and adopt to these new technologies, and automation is at the forefront of it, as you rightly said, right? Mike, can you move to the next slide? Yeah. So which brings us to the topic of, now we understand why automation is important now, right? But it needs a bit of a reassessing internally, right? I mean, which means to say, what you're trying to articulate here is, it has to happen now. For it to happen now, there is a bit of a reassessing and rethinking with the way the things are being evaluated internally and executed internally to happen, right? Interestingly, as Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, says in the recent quarterly results, 2 years worth of digital transformation has happened in the last two months. If you see that statement, it kind of highlights the fact of heavy usage of digital technologies. It could be for varied reasons, but companies have understood that it is a time to adopt to the digital technologies and have those as their competitive levers to fight through the current situation. But if you see on the right side, I mean, this is a typical process evaluation framework, right? The traditional view is to segregate the processes based on the potential of automation on multiple factors. Like it could be the complexity of the process. One could take the extent of digitalization, or one could take the current underlying technology, stack, and align the processes in a high ROI versus less automatability kind of a stack, right? But what happens is, it never looks at the business resilience angle. We at Sagety believe, right, these processes, instead of looking at processes at a happy path angle, where we all know what happens in a process, right? Instead, along with it, what we're saying is if you include the resilience as a prime factor for evaluation, then it would help organizations to better prepare themselves when they pick the potential choices for automation. I'm sure you as a business leader, all of the audience out there, each one of them as a business leader has to deliver the same outcomes now or even more, right? I mean, the KPIs and the expectations from the management are not gone away just because COVID is there. It's just that they would have to deliver the same outcomes, but with more limited resources. I'm sure all of us have furloughed some employees, so we got to work with the lower employee strength. We have to work with the tight cash flows, work with limited budgets, but the same or more outcomes are expected from us. To achieve more with less, automation is the way to go, as it not only provides the cost optimization, cost containment kind of a benefit, but it also brings in the intelligence levers. So what we kind of articulate to our customers is along with the process evaluation framework, keep the business resilience angle in mind, and so select the processes accordingly, and include the new age the technology skill sets that are being available in the market, like the AI ML skills, the democratization of RPA as a system, right? The continuous process mining as an option, right? One would have to provide all of these to the employees so that they could use this and so automate the processes better. It's like looking at the automation journey in more of a hyper automation angle, as John was mentioning, which is what Gartner is also trying to push into the market. Yeah.
Thank you, Gopi and John. It's clear that automation has evolved rapidly over the past few years, and leveraging such technology requires both reassessing and rethinking to maximize the benefits. Let's have another quick poll of our attendees in hearing how they see the use of automation themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how have you prioritized automation in your enterprise if you have? Is it with finance and accounting, recruitment and HR, customer service, transformation, operations optimization? Again, you can select one or more or multiple as it applies to your organization. Once again, I'll pause a few seconds to allow our audience to make their selection.
It's interesting that finance and accounting is on the top of the list. Most of the times we kind of see that department is that that function adopts RPA, OA, well, which kind of reflected in the poll result too. Interesting to see this, Mike, but also interesting to see the fact that operations optimization is being chosen. So maybe there are some participants from supply chain, warehouse, these kind of operations. It's a good observation that it is aligning with our thinking. Thank you.
Okay, on to the next section. Automation measures.
Yep. So there are two views that we are trying to put forward, right? For automation measures to happen, I guess first of all we got to understand. Let's step back and understand what is rapid response as a measure, within an organization, right? Before we come to the automation side of it. Rapid response in general means it's a proactive, business-focused, flexible strategy, right? That enables organizations to respond to any of these bad economic scenarios or situations, right? And help in creating contingency plans for survival. That's how a usual rapid response measure is set up in organizations. I'm sure in February, March of this year, when COVID had hit, the market, the companies, a lot of Fortune 500, Global 2000 organizations have went into the rapid response measure, right? As an example, I mean, these are all out there. It's not that Sage IT is trying to preach on this, but these are there out there. But I want to drop on one example. If you look at from finance perspective, in managing cash and liquidity is key, right? I mean, and in a tight scenario like in COVID. So one of the measures that a CFO would take is, hey, delaying vendor payments to preserve cash, right? That is a rapid response measure. So similarly, there are the other measures. I mean, each organization would pick their own organization-wide measures, but it's important that we understand it so that automation measures play along with this organization-wide rapid measures. Right. Move to the next slide, Mike. Now let's look at the automation angle. So from automation standpoint, we divide the measures into two segments, two pieces. Growth related measures one would have to look at, and then operational related measures, right? These measures are nothing but having a way to identify processes that are revenue critical, right? I mean, how do we is there a way to immediately identify which are revenue critical? Is there a way to manage superior customer experience without compromising on the quality of the experience? Is there a way to rapidly implement the identified measures within days and weeks instead of dragging it for months, right? And many of these measures help in defining the next steps of automation adoption as such. So if you look at growth measures are more towards business sustainability, business growth, whereas operational measures are more towards, hey, what are the levers that I have right now to make sure that my operational stuff is running, right? And have the engine run as is. John, I would like to bring you in to give your views on this. I'm sure you have a lot of experience in addressing these.
Yeah, in terms of the operational measures, I think a key measure is rapid implementation. What's the ROI? How long is it going to take me to recoup my investment? And rapid implementations, when you're in this rapid response mode, should be measured in hours, days, and weeks. Once you have a couple of other foundational pieces in place, and the two, I think, critical foundation elements are change management and having the right tech stack. And the change management is really dealing primarily in this regard to the human aspect of hyperautomation or rapidly implementing different automation technologies. And when I talk about change management, I think what's key in this, because it can be so transformative to a company, is really having the appropriate executive sponsorship. This is, has the potential with the right sponsorship, right funding, and right technology to dramatically change the profitability, resiliency, as we've said, and responsiveness of the company. Also, you've got to really focus on educating your organization as to the why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, what is going to be done, and who's going to be impacted, and what's in it for me. At the end of the day, this scares people. And so you've got to put plans in place to manage that human change. So you've got to have training to develop those citizen automators. You have to have some form of retention and transition planning for those adversely impacted employees. Some employees are going to take the most mundane pieces of their work away, and it's going to be liberating and more enabling for them to use their true talents. Other people will have been doing just routine jobs that may disappear. So you have to put bonus programs, or you should think about bonus programs for people who participate in identifying and automating portions of their jobs. Those people who may have to transition out of their current role, you should think about giving them preferred placement rights into new position openings. And if you can really get this the human resistance piece out of the way and get them mobilized, you can really have these rapid implementations that take hours, days, and weeks. The other important thing to have is the right technology stack. Earlier I said begin with the end in mind. So you really have to have a stack that can take you from simple attended robotic automations all the way through intelligent cognitive automations up in stage 4. And it's RPA is not or intelligent automation is not a product. It's really a suite of components. Some are desktop. It could be cloud server components, on-prem server components. They're handling things like scheduling and execution, monitoring, testing, OCR engines, and more. So you've got to have that right stack in place so that you can, start taking things that occurred, automations that occurred at early stages of desktop automations, and string them together to get these enterprise-wide, really impactful automations.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Thanks for highlighting that, John. The most important thing that kind of caught my attention was on this, incentivizing the resources for using automation, right? That kind of, I guess, it helps in rapid response in a way where the moment they get incentivized, they kind of get to do more. They would keep asking for, hey, I want to automate so and so process. I guess the key is that, and that I believe is a separate topic. I guess we need to do another session on it, right? Pretty interesting. Moving to the next slide. So now that we kind of highlighted why automation is important right now, and what does it take, what are the measures that one would have to look at from automation angle, you may ask, hey, how do we do it? Right? To achieve the rapid response with automation, at Sage IT, we have a defined framework for rapid implementation. As you can see, an average of 8 weeks, we can enable an automation journey and demonstrate the ROI to business. Right? Our differentiator here is the ease with which we design the bots, and our philosophy of avoiding to make deep system changes. And try to tackle the whole problem with RPA or automation plus the other enabling components. That kind of makes the deployment much faster and achieve the rapid timelines. Right? The biggest challenge that we have seen usually whenever we walk into any customer scenario is organizations struggle with the time it takes to identify meaningful use cases. They have some use cases in the beginning and they kind of, hey, you know what, how do I take it forward? I mean, of course, the audience could be at different stages of RPA maturity as such. If you have not even started RPA, then it is about, hey, how should I find the use case? If you already have RPA, I mean, tried automation to some extent, then the question is about how should I get the next bunch of other use cases. So the time it takes to identifying the meaningful use cases and translating them into deployable bot solutions is where the crux is that we observe. The other challenge that we see is how do we collaborate with business? Right, business has to come forward to share. Yes, you may have some ideas from IT perspective. I mean, it's actually vice versa. Business would have something and IT may sometimes say, you know what, hey, so and so technology is already available, why do you have to reinvent the wheel? But it can happen the other way around too. So we at Sage IT, we use discovery templates to solve the problem, along with accelerators that enable easy identification of business resilient focused processes. When we combine these templates and these accelerators with the human side of it, as John was mentioning, the flexible collaboration approach, the incentivization of the resources, the communication plan with the stakeholders, it kind of brings the whole acceleration for the deployment and in turn help the rapid implementation. So it is a very well-defined framework, and we kind of use it elsewhere. And there is another slide that talks about where did we use it. We'll love to touch upon that in that slide. Okay. Some of the examples that we have used this framework, in some cases, some are like naturally evolved, are these, right? So there are many examples out there across departments. See, supply chain, HR, finance and accounting, IT. As the poll result says, finance and accounting is the area where the adoption of automation is high, and it is slowly creeping into the other departments too. But the differentiator that we bring to the table to rapidly enable the automation implementations is about understanding the persona of the each business stakeholder. There are these varied personas across organizations. I usually, if you, for example, take chief HR officer, their focus is more on corporate culture. Their focus is to make sure the employee experience as such in the organization is nice. Similarly, from a CFO angle, it is about maintaining right governance and controls, right regulatory reporting, accurate information sharing on financial details. Right? That would be the finance head's interest. Similarly, from a CIO angle, it will be business continuity, service management, right? So while these personas are out there, it is about understanding how do we approach these business stakeholders and enable the conversations by making sure that whatever process gets selected in their department ties to the whole objective of the department, and in turn which kind of accelerates the automation adoption. So we have seen this, and we have been very successful in understanding and trying to tie up the needs of the organization along with the needs of the department, along with the needs of the resources, incentivizing them, providing a proper framework for training, making them go through the whole journey of understanding what automation benefits are. Those are all the elements that are required to be successful. On the next slide. So yeah, it is now that we articulated what is a framework, you may ask, hey, but what's the roadmap for preparedness? I'm sure audience has this curiosity of, fine, I am somewhere, how do I go and prepare myself with automation? Again, Sage 80 has a differentiated approach for this roadmap, right? For automation preparedness. If we step back and see today, it's not a matter of whether your organization wants to go digital or adopt automation, but it is how fast they will get there with the whole enterprise intact and ready to thrive. So there is a 7-step process that we follow and prepare an organization to adopt automation. While it may look like a typical RPA journey framework, there are few structural changes in the approach, like the focus that we give during the execution. We follow the agile methodologies, we follow design thinking. As I said, we kind of take the persona journeys into consideration, right? As John was highlighting in the past slides, it is about the speed in selecting the right process, speed in setting up, speed, the governance framework, speed in developing and deploying the bots. All of those things come together, and they would have to be part of any roadmap. Even with a partner like Sage 80, or within if the organizations are trying to do internally by themselves, right? In addition to this, Sage 80 has kits. These are like the solution kits, sales kits that enable organizations to adopt more. As we were talking about the maturity, each of you could be a different maturity level. So there could be a jumpstart kit for somebody who just wants to start on automation. There could be a COE setup kit for who has, there are some bots that are already there, but they want to accelerate further. There could be a design thinking kit to bring in their persona journey and design thinking into the mix so that the right use cases can be identified. There could be a health check kind of a kit, which is to see, hey, currently the current automation, not just from RPA, the other technologies angle also, to see how they are playing out and what are the nearest other technologies that are required. It could be AI, ML, it could be natural language programming, right? Those are all the kits that we bring to the table, and help in shifting the gears with ease for quicker adoption and ROI benefits. So I would like to talk about, we want to take 2 use cases and quickly talk about what have we done using this rapid implementation framework and our roadmap for automation journey. A very apt and relevant example for the times that we are in is the recent PPP Loan Forgiveness process, wherein a local Texas bank came forward asking for rapid enablement of the lending process for this event. It's an event-driven automation requirement. They had no system in place. They had to hire more loan processing agents and get them trained. So the biggest bottleneck for this client of us was time. So we jumped in with our rapid response framework, helped them identify the current process pretty quickly. It was more like a process mining kind of a thing that we did on the fly. We helped in automating the whole process in such a short timeline that they were able to go out and grasp or gather or acquire all the new customers. If you see the solution part of it, the whole execution was done in 1 week time. which is where we tried using, we kind of used our rapid implementation framework. There's a 2-bot RPA solution that we put forward. With the solution, the whole onboarding was less than two hours for a new customer. And this kind of helped the client also to gain almost like 3-fold, 4-folds of new customers, because new customer acquisition is key for a bank of this size. And it kind of helped them get all of these new customers onboarded. They're all the new business revenue channel for them going forward. So here, this is an example of how we kind of mobilize quickly, use the rapid implementation framework and drove the whole automation solution for them in the situation. Go to the next one, please. I guess John, I would like John to talk about his perspectives on this use case.
Yeah, this was a little different use case. It's in the medical industry, highly state regulated. It's audited, tracked. They're doing tracking basically from the raw material to the sale of a product to a patient or customer. And along the way in this process, there are licensed laboratories that test the product, and there are licensed carriers that transport the product. And the only system that has full visibility of all the players, the manufacturer, the labs, the transportation, the retailers, and the customers, the only system that exists that has that visibility is the state system. Unfortunately, it was designed for the state to control this industry, not for any of those participants in the industry. And so basically what they're having to do to get their operational and information reporting is they were having people, three and a half people between the hours, on average it was 3.5, it depends on the week and the day and what's going on, but they're having to download 16 CSV files for every license, and they had 15 licenses, and that is growing rapidly. So currently they're downloading 240 CSVs a night, and then they were having to consolidate those into 16 consolidated reports where all the licenses are consolidated in them, and they have graphs, they have pivot tables, they're putting in calculated columns, formatting, on and on and on. And it had happened between the hours of 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was a mess and often missed their deadlines. So the solution, if you could move forward, was quickly putting in a 2-bot RPA solution. It could have been a 1-bot and still done it in the amount of time that we broke it down. The process was completed in less than 4 hours. It's error-free. It's 99% on time. And you'd say, well, where's the other 1%? There are changes that happen on the state website that are unanticipated. This had a 6-week payback and was put in about 45 days from RPA tool selection through having a full-blown reporting system for them. So very exciting, and brought them not only cost savings, but capabilities that they couldn't have had otherwise.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that. Looks like that's a fantastic automation use case that kind of enabled them to not only just to address the technical challenges, but also have the revenue stream to continue. Right? Very good. Thanks for that. So over to you, Mike. These are the slides.
Well, thanks both to Gopi and John for sharing this valuable information based on their expertise and actual experience in leading organizations to use automation as part of their digital workforce. But their job's not complete. Let's open it up for some Q&A from the participants. So please, if you have a question, you can enter it into the questions panel, and I'll wait a second here and see if we have some questions that'll pop in that our panelists can provide some answers for. Okay, I have one here, and I guess this would be Gopi. You were talking about this, said that in your preparedness, you spoke about these kits. How would they be applied for someone who's in the beginning of an automation journey as opposed to someone further down the line?
Very, very interesting question, Mike. Thanks for bringing it up, whoever has asked that. So it is important that, yes, I mean, while the skits are all there, somebody who's just starting the journey, it is about knowing, what's the current situation, what's the current landscape is as such. So Sage IT uses the Jumpstart Kit, wherein we have there are different components in it within the Jumpstart Kit, right? It is about the time required or the effort required to understand the current processes that the organization is thinking about, keeping the business resilience in mind. I want to highlight that. And then the current ecosystem and how does the ecosystem enable rapid implementation? Are they ready or not, right? So Jumpstart Kit is the answer for that. I would love to get in touch, with the audience who has asked that question and discuss further upon it. But yeah, but that kit would enable them to immediately get on with the automation journey and get a kickstart.
Hey, thank you, Gopi. We have another one. From a practical implementation point of view, what kinds of teams are required from a customer? I mean, are these specially skilled people or what?
So there are two ways to answer this. Let me have John address this. John, would you mind putting an answer for it, and I'll chip in.
No, I think the most effective way to accelerate mobilization is to have it be multifunctional team, where you have a technical representative who can handle any issues that arise that with the technology stack itself. It's you don't want. I don't think you want to go at this with everyone who's been trained but nobody that has experience. So I think having an experience, someone on the team, whether it's from a company like Sage IT or some other area of the company where they've had success and they've developed some experience. I think having an experienced person who's worked with RPA on the team, and then you need the subject matter experts. Nobody knows how to do these jobs like the people who are currently doing them. So you've got to get the actual executor of these processes involved. And typically, what you find is those individuals only see one part of the process, and so you typically have to get the upstream and downstream subject matter experts as well, because typically with systems today, a person executing a task may have a very limited knowledge of what happened before they got me to this stage and what happens after the stage. So I think having this multi-function approach to the project is the most important accelerator in the success.
Very rightly said, John. Just to add to what you said, I guess along with that, if the internal champion, if there is an internal champion who's kind of championing this cause, if they can also be made part of the team, that will further amplify the acceleration. Right? We kind of always see that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have another one that I guess maybe from someone that is looking at this is, how do we identify the ideal candidates for automation in a process that can quickly showcase ROI?
Yeah, very, very fantastic question. So there are, as we mentioned in the bunch of slides before, there are these process evaluation framework that we use. It could be there are key parameters, right? There are a couple of parameters that one would have to take. The current process, how is it currently being executed? What is the ease of execution of the process? What are the underlying systems of the process that has to be understood? Then how is it impacting with respect to the current business? Is it a revenue generating or is it a cost avoidance kind of a process, right? And then third thing is what's the overall change it is going to kick in once we put an automation into place? I guess while there are many other parameters, if you take these three and identify, and I would say these three have to be considered. If you put these three lens and then look at the process, the answer would come out with respect to the most suitable process or processes that will give you high ROI. You want to add to that, John?
No, I guess the other thing I would add to it is that it should be something that's repeatable. They should be rules based. you can introduce OCR for document recognition early on. Typically you want to have that be sort of a second phase because it's a little more involved, takes a little more teaching of the system to make that work. So I would just start out with things that are rule-based, very repetitive, and initially things that don't require a lot of judgment.
All right, we have time for one more. This one is says having exposure to UiPath and Blue Prism in use cases and rated good in Gartner. Can you give us some feedback on some capabilities between them for a company that's starting on its journey?
Oh, so it's an interesting question, but it's gonna need a deep dive into differentiating the product features and capabilities. Sage IT has experience in these platforms. We kind of look at the platforms from a process agnostic view. I mean, we kind of flip it the other side too. When we look at a process, we take a look at the process from a platform agnostic view also. So interesting. I would like to get connected on the side, whoever has asked this question, and probably have a longer and a deeper discussion on it.
Yeah. I agree, and that's what we'll do. I mean, given we've hit the top of the hour, we will take these, and for those that ask questions, we can certainly respond in more detail. I say not myself, but our esteemed panelists can respond in more detail on these type of questions that are not a simple one-sentence answer. But as part of our efforts to provide valuable information in this next normal for business, we have one more takeaway for the audience, and that is we are offering them, as you can see on the screen, a free discovery call with our automation experts. So we would be happy to answer questions like we've just gone through, some of them requiring more detail with regards to digital workforce and the roadmap and using automation. So certainly encourage you to make note of the contact information, and that way we can respond quickly and promptly to help you move along that roadmap or move along the pathway toward adoption. On behalf of Sage IT, I do want to thank all of you for joining us today in sharing this valuable and insightful information on how to accelerate your digital workforce with automation and why the time to do this is now. Are you ready for change? Thank you.